The metallic dome of the Galactic Council chamber gleamed under the triple suns of Aurelian, the diplomatic capital planet where representatives from over 3,000 species gathered annually to celebrate peace. This year marked a special milestone, the 1,000th anniversary of the Eternal Accord, the comprehensive treaty that had brought an unprecedented era of cooperation across the known universe. Ambassador Alara Kendrick adjusted her ceremonial blue sash, Earth's traditional diplomatic color, as she gazed through the panoramic windows of her quarters. The sprawling cityscape of Aurelian Prime stretched before her, its spiral towers and floating gardens blending alien aesthetics with practical functionality. Holographic banners announcing 1,000 years of harmony fluttered in the artificial breeze. "Ambassador, the preliminary reception begins in 20 minutes, announced her assistant, an AI interface projected from her wrist communicator. The delegation from Proxima Centauri has requested a brief exchange before the formal proceedings. Alara nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the shimmering skyline. At 42, she had served as Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Federation for nearly a decade. The weight of responsibility still surprised her sometimes, representing not just 8 billion humans on Earth, but the 17 billion spread across Sol's colonies. "Confirm the meeting," she replied, brushing a strand of silver-streaked black hair behind her ear. "And remind me of their cultural protocols again." As the AI recited the elaborate greeting customs of the Proximans, Alara's thoughts drifted to the significance of today's celebration. 1,000 years since humanity had proven themselves worthy of joining the interstellar community. 1,000 years since the last major conflict had threatened galactic stability. The memory of humanity's controversial entrance into galactic society wasn't just history to her. It was family legacy. Her ancestor, Thomas Kendrick, had been among the first human diplomats to make contact when alien vessels appeared in Earth's orbit. Those initial tense negotiations had eventually given way to Earth, becoming a respected, if somewhat peculiar, member of the Federation. A soft chime interrupted her reminiscence. "Ambassador," the AI spoke with unexpected urgency. "There's been a priority communication from the Council President. All preliminary events have been suspended. An emergency session has been called instead." Alara's diplomatic instincts immediately heightened. Emergency sessions were exceedingly rare in an era of such stability. "What's happened?" "The details are classified, but your immediate presence is requested in the central chamber." 20 minutes later, Alara hurried through the vaulted corridors of the council building, her formal attire hastily assembled. She nodded to familiar faces from dozens of worlds, noting the same confusion and concern mirrored in expressions both human and alien. Something momentous was unfolding. The central chamber was a marvel of both architecture and diplomacy. Designed as a perfect sphere with concentric rings of seating, it ensured no species could claim positional superiority. The chamber accommodated beings of all sizes and environmental needs, from the microscopic Quantians to the massive gas-breathing Jovians. Today, however, the perfect balance of the room felt disturbed by an almost palpable tension. As Alara took her seat in the human delegation section, she spotted Tashar, the Kirin representative and her closest ally among the non-human diplomats. The tall, feathered being's normally iridescent plumage had dulled to a worried gray, a physiological response that spoke volumes about the severity of the situation. Tashar leaned toward her, voice lowered to a whisper that only Alara's translator could catch. "Have you heard? It's unprecedented." Before Alara could respond, the council president, a dignified Medusan with flowing tentacular appendages, rose to the central platform, and the chamber fell silent. The translators hummed to life, ensuring every being would hear the message in their native language. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Federation," the president began, voice resonating with gravity. "On this day meant for celebration, I must instead bring troubling news. 3 standard hours ago, our long-range communication arrays received a transmission from beyond our established borders, from the collective consciousness known as the Xenom Conclave. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Xenom were not unknown, but they were distant, a collective intelligence composed of billions of connected entities residing in a star cluster, some 20 light-years beyond Federation territory. Contact had been minimal for centuries, their isolationist tendencies respected by Federation diplomatic protocol. The Xenom message was brief but unequivocal, continued the President. They have formally declared hostile intent against the Federation, specifically citing the human species as an uncontainable threat that must be neutralized. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Ilara felt her blood run cold. Humans? A threat? Earth maintained only a minimal defensive force as required by Federation membership. Human colonies were open, transparent communities. What possible threat could they pose to a distant collective like the Xenom? The President raised several tentacles for silence. We have initiated standard diplomatic protocols requesting clarification and offering dialogue. However, long-range sensors have detected movement from Xenom space. A fleet of unknown composition has mobilized and appears to be on a direct course toward Federation territory. Ilara exchanged glances with her human colleagues, representatives from Mars, Europa, and the outer colonies. Their expressions mirrored her own bewilderment. The Council will now open for emergency discussion, the President announced. Given the specific nature of the threat, we first recognize Ambassador Ilara Kendrick of Earth. Rising on unsteady legs, Ilara approached the central speaking platform. Thousands of eyes, optical sensors, and sensory organs of countless varieties focused on her. The weight of humanity's future suddenly pressed upon her shoulders with crushing force. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I stand before you as confused as you must be. Humanity has maintained all treaty obligations for a millennium. Our defensive capabilities are transparent and limited to Federation-approved levels. We have no hidden agendas, no secret weapons programs, no expansionist ambitions." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Whatever misconception has led the Xenom to this declaration, I pledge Earth's full cooperation in resolving it peacefully. We request the formation of an emergency diplomatic mission to establish direct communication with the Xenom before any irreversible actions occur." As she returned to her seat, the chamber filled with a cacophony of voices. Representatives from hundreds of worlds clamored to speak. Some expressed solidarity with humanity, while others, notably species with historical grievances against Earth, suggested immediate concessions to placate the Xenom. The Artaxian delegate, a crystalline being who refracted light in dazzling patterns when agitated, spoke next. "Perhaps we should consider the possibility that the humans do indeed represent some form of threat unknown to us. Their biological and technological evolution has always proceeded at rates concerning to many observer species." Ilara bristled at the implication, but maintained her diplomatic composure. This was exactly the kind of division the Federation couldn't afford in a crisis. For hours, the debate raged. Proposals ranged from immediate military mobilization to surrendering all human territories as buffer zones. Through it all, Ilara and her team worked feverishly, communicating with Earth's government and trying to understand what could have prompted such an unprecedented threat. By the session's end, only one concrete decision had been reached. A high-level delegation would be assembled to meet the approaching Xenom fleet at the Federation's border. Ilara would represent humanity, accompanied by senior diplomats from 5 neutral species, and protected by a modest Federation security contingent. As the chamber finally emptied, Tashar approached Ilara, feathers now a concerned blue-green. "This makes no sense," the Kirin said, placing a 3-fingered hand on Ilara's shoulder. The Xenom have observed the principle of non-interference for centuries. Why now? Why humans? I don't know, Alara admitted. But I intend to find out before this escalates any further. Be careful, friend, Tashar cautioned. Collective consciousnesses do not think as individuals do. Their decision-making can appear incomprehensible to singular beings like us. Alara nodded grimly. I've got 3 days before we depart. I need everything we have on Xenom psychology, communication patterns, and historical interactions. What you need, Tashar corrected gently, is to understand why they fear you. Back in her quarters, Alara established a secure connection to Earth's Security Council. The faces of humanity's leadership appeared before her, their expressions grave, despite being projected from 30 light-years away. We've received the Council's report, said President Adama, her weathered face lined with concern. Our military advisors are baffled. We've had no covert operations, no unauthorized expeditions into or near Xenom space. Could this be related to the Archivist Project? Asked another counselor. The president shot a warning glance at her colleague, but Alara caught the reference. What's the Archivist Project? She demanded. An uncomfortable silence followed, before President Adama sighed. It's classified. But you need to know now. For the past 50 years, we've been cataloging and activating dormant technology discovered in ancient ruins on Proxima b. Most of it is benign, medical techniques, sustainable energy systems. We've shared all militarily significant findings with the Federation, as required by treaty. Most of it? Alara pressed. 3 months ago, we activated a device that appears to be a form of long-range observation technology. It uses some kind of quantum entanglement we don't fully understand yet. The science team believes it might be capable of observing distant locations without conventional limitations. The implications hit Alara immediately. You turned an ancient spy device toward Xenom space? Not intentionally, the president insisted. The device activates seemingly random observation windows. One must have opened into their territory. Alara pinched the bridge of her nose, fighting a growing headache. So, we accidentally deployed 1,000-year-old alien surveillance technology against a reclusive hive mind. And now, they're coming to exterminate us. Wonderful. The technology was cleared by Federation archaeologists, defended another counselor. We followed all protocols. Clearly, not all of them, Alara countered. This gives me something to work with. At least, I'll need complete technical specifications of the device and all recorded observations from Xenom space. Maybe I can convince them this was a misunderstanding, not an act of aggression. After the tense briefing, Alara spent hours poring over the data from the Archivist Project. The ancient technology was indeed remarkable, capable of creating temporary windows into distant space through what the scientists theorized was a network of quantum-entangled particles left behind by a long-vanished civilization. Most observations had been of empty space or uninhabited worlds, but several had indeed penetrated deep into Xenom territory. What troubled Alara most wasn't the accidental surveillance, but what the device had recorded. Massive construction projects, strange biological engineering facilities, and what appeared to be weapons testing on a scale that violated numerous Federation treaties. If these observations were accurate, the Xenom had been preparing for war long before this incident. Over the next 2 days, the diplomatic mission took shape. The Federation's fastest ship, the Concordia, was prepared for the journey to the border. Alara worked with specialists in xenopsychology to develop communication strategies for a collective consciousness, while military advisors briefed her on defensive options, though everyone hoped those wouldn't be necessary. On the morning of departure, Tashar found Alara in the ship's observation lounge, staring at the stars. "The burden should not be yours alone," the Kirin said softly. "Who else should bear it?" Alara replied, without turning. It was human curiosity that activated that device. Human carelessness that pointed it toward Xenom space. And human transparency that revealed the mistake, Tashar countered. Many species would have hidden such an error, denied responsibility. Your honesty may yet save us all. Alara finally turned, offering a thin smile. Let's hope the Xenom appreciate honesty. The Concordia departed with little ceremony, accelerating to translight velocity, once clear of Aurelian's gravity well. The journey to the Federation border would take just under 48 hours, during which the team would finalize their diplomatic approach. On the bridge, Alara reviewed the latest intelligence. The Xenom fleet had maintained its course, but had not increased speed. They appeared to be matching the diplomatic mission's timetable, which offered a slender hope that they were willing to talk before fighting. Ambassador, called the ship's captain, a stoic Arcturian named Vox. We're receiving an encrypted transmission from Aurelian. Security flagged it as potentially compromised. Alara frowned. Let me see it. The message was brief and untraceable. Not all is as it seems. The ancient eyes see more than stars. Find me in the shadow of the third moon. Cryptic, Alara muttered. Could be nothing, could be crucial. Captain, when we reach the rendezvous coordinates, can we position ourselves near the third moon of the border planet? Captain Vox nodded. We'll be vulnerable there. Less maneuvering room if things go badly. If things go badly, I doubt positioning will make much difference, Alara replied grimly. The remaining journey passed in tense preparation. The diplomatic team rehearsed various scenarios, from peaceful negotiation to hasty retreat. Alara slept little, her mind racing with possibilities and contingencies. When they finally dropped out of translight at the border coordinates, the system's 3 moons hung like silent sentinels against the backdrop of a red giant star. And beyond them, just visible as points of light, waited the Xenom fleet. Initial scans confirmed what they had feared. The alien force outnumbered them significantly. At least 30 vessels of various configurations, all bristling with what the tactical officer identified as weapon systems. They're holding position, reported Captain Vox. No aggressive movements yet. Take us toward the third moon, Alara instructed. Maintain open communications channels on all Federation standard frequencies. As they maneuvered closer to the cratered moon, sensors detected a small vessel hiding in one of the deeper craters. It wasn't Xenom design. In fact, it appeared to be a Federation scout ship with identification transponders disabled. Hail them, Alara ordered. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a humanoid figure shrouded in shadow. Ambassador Kendrick, you received my message. Good. Identify yourself, Alara demanded. The figure leaned forward, revealing features that startled Alara. The distinctive ridged forehead and silver-flecked skin of a Xenom biological unit. These semi-autonomous entities served as the physical extensions of the collective consciousness, rarely seen outside their territory. I am Vex, the figure stated, once connected to the Xenom whole, now separated. What your people would call a dissident. Alara exchanged glances with Tashar. A Xenom that thinks independently? I wasn't aware that was possible. It is not encouraged, Vex replied, with what might have been dry humor. But it happens occasionally when a biological unit spends too much time isolated from the collective. I've been studying the Federation for decades. What's happening now? The fleet, the threats. It's not what it appears. Explain, Alara pressed. The collective fears what it doesn't understand. Your ancient observation device activated something dormant within Xenom space. Something buried before even the collective formed. An automated defense system from a civilization that predates us all. Vex manipulated some controls, sending data to the Concordia. These are schematics of a biological weapon system the defense array began manufacturing as soon as it detected the quantum observation. The collective didn't build this. It's being built inside our territory by machines we cannot control. The schematics appeared on Alara's screen, a sophisticated nanobiological agent designated in the ancient language as Apocalypse. According to the data, it was specifically calibrated to target species with human genetic markers. The collective isn't threatening you because it wants war, Vex continued. It's threatening you because it believes this is the only way to force you to withdraw your observation technology before the weapon system completes its automated launch sequence. Alara's mind raced. They think we activated this ancient system deliberately? As a first strike? The collective lacks certain conceptual frameworks, Vex explained. Accidents, coincidences, unintended consequences. These are difficult concepts for a hive mind that plans with perfect coordination. They assume all actions are intentional. How do we stop this? Alara asked. You can't deactivate the weapon remotely. It's isolated from all networks. But if you can convince the leading Xenom units that this was truly an accident, they might help us access the physical controls. Captain Vox interrupted. The Xenom fleet is moving. They're closing distance. Alara made a quick decision. Vex, will you join our delegation? Your perspective could be crucial. The dissident Xenom hesitated. If I am recognized as separate, I will be reabsorbed into the collective, my individual consciousness erased. We'll protect you, Alara promised, though she wasn't entirely sure how. As Vex's small craft docked with the Concordia, the Xenom fleet arranged itself in a perfect hemisphere, facing them. A communication request came through almost immediately. On the view screen appeared a trio of Xenom biological units, identical in appearance to Vex, but with eyes that pulsed in perfect synchronization, the visual indicator of their connected consciousness. Federation vessel. They spoke in unison, their voices creating an unsettling harmonic. You harbor the human threat. Surrender all human entities for neutralization, or face collective response. Alara stepped forward. I am Ambassador Alara Kendrick of Earth. We come in peace to resolve this misunderstanding. The observation of your space was accidental, an unforeseen consequence of ancient technology we did not fully understand. The Xenom representatives tilted their heads in identical motions. Deception. The Apocalypse system activation proves hostile intent. The human threat must be contained before weapon maturation. We didn't activate any weapon system, Alara insisted. Our scientists activated an observation device from a civilization that predates both our species. We had no knowledge of any connected defense systems. The Xenom were silent for a moment, their eyes pulsing more rapidly as the collective processed this claim. Irrelevant, they finally responded. The threat exists regardless of intent. The biological countermeasure nears completion. We must neutralize the human genetic pattern to prevent its deployment. Vex stepped into view. Collective, this unit has observed the humans directly. Their technological understanding is fragmented, imperfect. They are chaos thinkers, not pattern completers like us. The activation was random, not targeted. The Xenom representatives recoiled visibly. Unit designation Vex 9876. You are corrupted, disconnected. Your observations are unreliable. My disconnection gives me perspective you lack, Vex countered. The humans pose no deliberate threat. The ancient systems misinterpreted their observation as aggression, just as you are now. The debate continued for hours, moving from the accusatory to the technical, as Alara presented data on the ancient device, its accidental activation patterns, and Earth's willingness to deactivate it permanently. Throughout, she sensed the collective consciousness processing, evaluating, yet remaining unconvinced. Finally, the Xenom issued what seemed like an ultimatum. We will inspect this device directly. A delegation will accompany you to Earth. If deception is detected, the fleet will proceed with human containment. It wasn't ideal, but it was progress. Alara agreed to the terms, arranging for a small Xenom contingent to board the Concordia for the journey to Earth. Vex would remain with them, despite the obvious discomfort this caused the collective representatives. As the Xenom shuttlecraft docked with the Concordia, Tashar pulled Alara aside. "This is dangerous. You're bringing them directly to Earth." "We have nothing to hide," Alara replied. "Transparency is our best defense now." "And if they decide to strike anyway, their ships could deploy this apocalypse weapon before the Federation fleet could respond." Alara's expression hardened. "Then we make sure they understand us before we reach Earth. Not just our technology, but who we are." The Xenom delegation consisted of 5 identical biological units, each connected to the collective but capable of independent movement and speech. They moved with unsettling coordination, examining the ship with synchronized movements. Alara had prepared a comprehensive briefing on human history, culture, and their place in the Federation. The Xenom received the information with apparent indifference, more interested in technical specifications of the ancient device. "You misunderstand," Alara told them on the 3rd day of the journey. "To comprehend why we activated that device, you need to understand human curiosity, our driving need to explore, to know." "Inefficient," replied the lead Xenom unit. "Knowledge should be acquired systematically, not chaotically." "Yet chaos has its own patterns," Tashar interjected. "Humans have made some of their greatest discoveries through what they call serendipity, accidental findings while searching for something else entirely." The Xenom dismissed this concept as irrelevant, but Alara noticed Vex watching the exchange with interest. The disconnected Xenom had been studying humans for years and seemed to grasp nuances the collective missed. When they were 10 hours from Earth, an urgent message arrived from the Archivist Project facility. The ancient observation device had activated again, autonomously, and was now fixated on the approaching Xenom fleet. Worse, it appeared to be transmitting data, not just receiving it. "It's establishing a direct quantum link to the defense system in Xenom space," explained the lead scientist. "We're trying to shut it down, but it's drawing power from somewhere we can't identify." When Alara shared this information with the Xenom delegation, their reaction was immediate and alarming. All 5 units froze momentarily, then began moving with increased speed. "Confirmation of hostile intent," they declared. "The device accelerates the apocalypse sequence. We must neutralize immediately." "No!" Alara blocked their path. "We're trying to deactivate it. This is exactly what we've been telling you. The technology is acting autonomously, not under our control." The lead Xenom pushed past her. "The collective has decided. Signal the fleet. Human containment begins now." Tashar moved with surprising speed, activating the ship's internal security fields to contain the Xenom delegation. "Ambassador, we have a serious problem." On the bridge, Captain Vox confirmed their worst fears. "The Xenom fleet has broken formation and is accelerating toward Earth at maximum velocity. They'll arrive within 3 hours." Alara's mind raced. The Federation defense fleet was scattered, unprepared for this sudden escalation. Earth's planetary shields were designed for meteor defense, not military-grade weapons. Millions, perhaps billions, would die if the Xenom deployed their weapons. "We need to get ahead of them," she decided. "Maximum speed to Earth, and get me a direct channel to the observation device facility." As the Concordia pushed its engines beyond safety limits, Alara formulated a desperate plan. If they couldn't deactivate the ancient technology, perhaps they could use it instead. "Dr. Harrington," she addressed the facility's lead scientist when the connection was established. "I need you to focus the device directly on these coordinates." She transmitted the position of the Xenom fleet. "Ambassador, we can't control where it observes," the scientist protested. "You said it's fixated on the fleet already. Work with that. I need a two-way connection, not just observation, but communication." While the scientific team attempted this unprecedented modification, Alara visited the confined Xenom delegation. They sat motionless, presumably in deep communion with the collective. "I know you can hear me," she began. In less than 2 hours, your fleet will reach Earth. If they attack, the Federation will respond with full force. A war that neither of us wanted will begin because of technology neither of us created. No response. We're attempting to establish direct communication between your ancient defense system and our observation device. If we succeed, we might be able to send a deactivation signal. The lead Xenom's eyes flickered. Impossible. The systems are genetically keyed to their creators. Then help us, Alara pleaded. Your collective understands these systems better than we do. Work with us, not against us. After a long pause, the Xenom responded. The collective is considering alternatives. It wasn't much, but it was something. Alara returned to the bridge, where Vex had been assisting with translations of the ancient technological interfaces. They're scared, the disconnected Xenom told her quietly. The collective experiences fear differently than individuals, but it's there, a systemic response to perceived extinction threats. We're all afraid, Alara admitted, but fear is a poor advisor in crisis. When they finally reached Earth orbit, the situation had deteriorated further. The observation facility reported that the device was now fully linked with the Xenom defense system, accelerating the Apocalypse weapons development. Meanwhile, long-range sensors detected the Xenom fleet approaching the outer planets of the Sol system. Earth's Security Council, the Federation Emergency Response Team, and representatives from a dozen key worlds crowded into a hastily assembled command center beneath Geneva. The ancient device had been transported there, a gleaming obelisk of unknown metal that pulsed with internal light. The Xenom delegation, now cooperating under strict supervision, examined the device with obvious recognition. This is indeed of the same origin as our defense system, confirmed the lead unit. A technology created by the predecessors, a species extinct for at least 50,000 years. Dr. Harrington, a nervous man with perpetually disheveled hair, pointed to the pulsing patterns. It's communicating with the defense array in your space, but we can't interpret the data exchange. We can, said the Xenom. It is confirming target parameters. The defense system now recognizes all human genetic patterns as enemy signatures. A chill ran through the room. Alara stepped closer to the device. Can we change that designation? Only a predecessor could reset the targeting parameters, explained another Xenom unit. Their genetic key is required, which we don't have, Alara concluded grimly. Vex, who had been quietly observing, suddenly approached the device. Perhaps not directly, but the predecessors built back doors into their systems, emergency overrides in case of malfunction. How do you know this? Demanded the lead Xenom. Because in my isolation, I studied the ancient records without collective filtering, Vex replied. There are patterns in the quantum fluctuations, a rhythm, a code. The predecessors were not just engineers but artists. Their systems respond to beauty as much as function. It seemed far-fetched, but they had no better options. Under Vex's guidance, they began modulating the device's quantum field, creating patterns that he claimed would resonate with the defense system's base programming. Meanwhile, the Xenom fleet had entered the inner solar system. Federation defensive positions were established, but everyone knew they were outnumbered and outgunned. In orbit, the Xenom command ship transmitted a final warning. Containment begins in 30 minutes. Evacuate all non-human entities from the target planet. President Adama, who had aged visibly in the days since the crisis began, addressed the command center. We've prepared shelters for as many as we can, but a full evacuation is impossible. If that biological weapon deploys, casualties will be in the billions. The room fell silent, the weight of impending disaster settling over them all. In that moment of collective despair, Vex made a breakthrough. There, he exclaimed, pointing to a change in the device's pulsing pattern. It's responding to the harmonic sequence. The defense system is requesting final authorization. "What do we send?" asked Dr. Harrington. "Not what. Who?" Vex replied, turning to Alara. "The system needs to receive direct sensory input from what it perceives as the threat. It needs to see you." Alara hesitated only briefly before stepping toward the device. "What do I do?" "Place your hands on the contact points," Vex instructed. "The system will analyze your biological patterns, your thought structures, your emotional responses." "And then what?" Alara asked. Vex's expression was unreadable. "Then it decides if you are truly a threat worthy of extinction." With no better options and time running out, Alara placed her palms against the cold, ancient metal. Immediately, a sensation like electric current ran through her body. Images flooded her mind, stars exploding, civilizations rising and falling, vast intelligences waging wars across millennia. The device was showing her the history it had witnessed, the conflicts it had been created to prevent. And through it all, a question pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Why should you survive? Words seemed inadequate. So Alara projected thoughts instead. Humanity's struggles and triumphs, their capacity for both destruction and creation, their endless curiosity about the universe around them. "We make mistakes," she acknowledged. "Terrible ones. Sometimes. But we learn. We grow. We're better together than alone." The predecessor device seemed to consider this, rifling through her memories, her hopes, her fears. Then it shifted focus, connecting her consciousness directly to the defense system in Xenom space, and through it, to the collective mind itself. Suddenly, Alara wasn't just herself anymore. She experienced the vast, intricate network of the Xenom consciousness, billions of connected minds working in perfect harmony, yet terrified of the chaos that individual thought represented. She felt their fear of humanity's unpredictability, their certainty that such randomness must eventually lead to destruction. In turn, the collective experienced her individuality, the unique perspective, the personal hopes and ethical frameworks that guided her decisions. Not chaos, but a different kind of order. Not a threat, but a complementary way of existing. In the command center, they watched as Alara stood frozen, her eyes reflecting the same pulsing light as the device. The countdown to the Xenom attack continued mercilessly. 20 minutes, 15, 10. "Something's happening," reported a sensor technician. "The Xenom fleet is stopping." On the view screens, they watched as the alien vessel slowed, then held position just beyond Mars's orbit. No explanation came, no communications, just a sudden cessation of their advance. 5 minutes before the deadline, Alara gasped and staggered backward from the device, caught by Tashar before she could fall. Her eyes gradually returned to normal, though she seemed disoriented. "What happened?" President Adama demanded. "What did you see?" Alara took several deep breaths before answering. "Everything, nothing. I don't have words for it." She looked at the Xenom delegation, whose members were exhibiting similar signs of disorientation. "The device created a temporary psychic link between my consciousness and the collective. We understood each other for a moment." The lead Xenom unit stepped forward, its movements now less synchronized with the others, more individual. "The human speaks truth. We have experienced singularity. It was illuminating." "And the fleet?" pressed the Federation security chief. "A consensus is forming within the collective," replied the Xenom. "The defense system has been persuaded to recategorize human genetic patterns as non-hostile." Relief washed through the room, though Alara noticed the careful phrasing. "Persuaded how?" The Xenom's expression shifted in what might have been the species' equivalent of a smile. "The predecessor system responds to emotional states, as well as logical arguments. It perceived something unexpected in your species." "Which was?" Alara prompted. "Humor," Vex answered for his kin. The capacity to laugh at absurdity, even in the face of extinction. The predecessors valued this trait highly. It indicated a species capable of self-reflection and adaptation. President Adama looked skeptical. "You're saying we're being spared because we can tell jokes?" "Not exactly," Alara clarified, the experience still settling in her mind. "It's more about perspective, the ability to step outside a crisis and see the bigger picture." The predecessors believed that any species that could laugh at itself was unlikely to destroy others deliberately. As if to demonstrate, a communication suddenly came through from the Xenom command ship. On screen appeared a different biological unit, adorned with what seemed to be ceremonial markings. "Federation representatives," it began formally. "The collective has reached consensus. The defensive measures have been rescinded. We request a formal dialogue to establish permanent communication protocols between our civilizations to prevent such misunderstandings in future." The room held its collective breath, waiting for conditions or threats. None came. President Adama stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and the Federation, we accept your proposal with gratitude and relief." As the transmission ended, the tension that had gripped the command center for days finally broke. Laughter, nervous, relieved, perhaps slightly hysterical, bubbled up from person to person. Even the Xenom delegation seemed affected, their usually synchronized movements becoming more individualized, more expressive. In the days that followed, the formal diplomatic processes began. The Xenom fleet remained in the outer solar system as a delegation from their command ship joined the talks in Geneva. The ancient observation device was carefully deactivated and placed under Joint Federation Xenom study, along with the now dormant defense system. Alara found herself at the center of it all, uniquely positioned to bridge the gap between individual and collective thinking. The brief psychic connection had left her with insights into Xenom psychology that proved invaluable in the negotiations. 1 week after the crisis, as the framework for a new treaty began taking shape, she found Vex watching the sunset from the diplomatic compound's garden. "You knew, didn't you?" she asked. "About the predecessor's criteria. About laughter." The disconnected Xenom inclined his head slightly. "I suspected. In my years observing humans, your capacity for humor in crisis always fascinated me. The collective lacks this ability. Every situation is evaluated with perfect seriousness." "Is that why you separated? To experience laughter?" "Among other individual experiences," Vex admitted. "Curiosity, perhaps not unlike your own. I wanted to understand why some species choose individuality despite its inefficiencies." "And have you found your answer?" Vex considered this. "Perhaps. There is beauty in the chaos of individual thought, unexpected connections, innovations that perfect logic might never discover." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Alara asked, "What will happen to you now? Will you rejoin the collective?" "The experience with the predecessor device has changed things," Vex replied. "The collective is considering a new structure, one that allows for greater individual variation while maintaining overall coherence. I may serve as a model for this adaptation." "Evolution through crisis," Alara mused. "Very human of them." "Indeed," Vex agreed with what might have been amusement. "Though I would advise against pointing that out in the negotiations." 2 days later, in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Federation headquarters, representatives from Earth, the Federation worlds, and the Xenom Collective gathered to sign the preliminary accords. The document established regular communication channels, shared research protocols for ancient technologies, and a framework for cultural exchange between collective and individual intelligences. As Alara prepared to deliver the closing remarks, Tashar approached her backstage, feathers now a vibrant purple of satisfaction. 1,000 years of peace, threatened by ancient ghosts, and saved by the sound of human laughter. The Kirin reflected. Not the anniversary celebration we planned, but perhaps more meaningful. We came close to war, Alara reminded her friend. Too close. Yet, we found understanding instead, Tashar countered. And perhaps something more valuable than the peace we already had. A new perspective on why that peace matters. When Alara took the podium, facing the assembled dignitaries from across the galaxy, she set aside her prepared remarks. The formal language seemed inadequate for the moment. 1,000 years ago, she began, humanity joined this federation as uncertain newcomers to a vast community. Today, we faced extinction because of a misunderstanding between technologies and species separated by time and thought structure. She paused, looking at the Xenom delegation, their faces now subtly different from each other, showing the first signs of emerging individuality. The lesson I take from this crisis is not about the dangers of ancient technology or the challenges of communication across different forms of consciousness. It's about the value of diversity itself, not just biological diversity, which we've long cherished, but diversity of thought. The Xenom leader, now identifying itself with the individual name Vax, nodded in acknowledgement. The collective and the individual need not be in opposition, Alara continued. Like the Kirin, who maintain both personal identity and flock consciousness, or the Jovians, who share dreams while pursuing individual passions, we can find strength in multiple modes of existence. She smiled, feeling the lingering connection to the collective, a faint echo of that moment of shared understanding. And perhaps most importantly, we've been reminded of the power of perspective, the ability to step back from crisis and see the absurdity of advanced civilizations threatening each other over miscommunications. The capacity to laugh at ourselves may well be what saves us all from the cycles of fear and aggression that have ended so many species before us. As she concluded her remarks, a ripple of appreciation moved through the assembly. Not applause. Many species had no hands to clap, but a multicultural expression of agreement, flashing bioluminescence, rustling feathers, humming resonances, and yes, human laughter. The crisis had passed. A new millennium of peace, one built on deeper understanding rather than mere coexistence, was beginning. And somewhere in the vast database of the predecessor technology, humanity had been categorized not as a threat to be eliminated, but as something far more valuable, a species that could laugh in the face of apocalypse, and by doing so, transform it into an opportunity for growth. As the formal ceremony concluded and the delegates mingled, President Adama approached Alara with a wry smile. So, the moral of the story is, when aliens declare war, just laugh at them? Alara chuckled. Perhaps not as official diplomatic policy, but maintaining perspective in crisis, that I can recommend. Across the room, she noticed Vex engaged in animated conversation with a group of Federation xenobiologists, gesturing with an individuality that would have been unthinkable for a Xenom just weeks earlier. Tashar followed her gaze. He's explaining how the collective is experimenting with limited individual thought nodes, Xenom, who can disconnect partially while maintaining the consensus link. Evolution, Alara murmured, for them and for us. The next 1,000 years should be interesting, Tashar replied, feathers shifting to a contemplative blue-green. Especially if we remember to laugh along the way. Outside the assembly hall, the triple suns of Aurelian cast long shadows across the diplomatic quarter. The celebration banners still hung from many buildings, though their message had changed. Where once they proclaimed 1,000 years of harmony, they now read, peace through understanding. It wasn't just a catchy phrase. Alara reflected as she watched the diverse gathering of species, some individual, some collective, some somewhere in between. It was a hard-won insight, purchased at the brink of war and sealed with unexpected laughter. The ancient predecessors, with their mysterious technology and extinction-level weapons, had left behind one final lesson, hidden in the core programming of their devices. Any species advanced enough to laugh at the absurdity of conflict might just be advanced enough to avoid it altogether. As night fell on Aurelian, that lesson echoed across stars and consciousness, a new foundation for the millennium to come.